Climb Tribe. I am here with Becky. She is here 2.0 for our sweet podcast. I want Becky to tell us a little bit about what she does. She is our sweet little feminist business coach. She just really wants to help her people shift from the hustle into intentional CEOing. Becky, tell us, welcome. First, welcome. Hello.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Tell
me.
us about your biz. Tell us about your just secret sauce. Tell us all the
Oh,
stuff.
well,
She's
as I
like,
was
so
telling
much.
you, I have been under the weather. I feel better, but I know my voice still sounds sick. So I just want to address that right off the top. And I don't feel like I have secret sauce at the moment because
Oh,
I've been
because we're like
sick
so
for so
vulnerable
long.
with sickness.
Yeah,
You're like,
but
if I had secret sauce, it would be to complete
heal
immunity from
heal
all
thyself.
illness. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, thanks for having me back. I'm so excited to be here.
Love having you.
And I'm a feminist business coach, as you mentioned, and you kind of already gave me my intro, but I also run the Feminist Podcast Collective, where we do similar work, but it's helping podcast hosts who want to make the world a better place, people who hold marginalized identities, trying to help amplify their voices in a world where podcasting, as you probably know well, has become all about corporate ownership and celebrities. And how do the rest of us still get our voices heard? And that's what we're doing with the Podcast Collective. So I kind of have these two arms of my business.
I think that's amazing. I mean, just like all the power. When I hear like how many podcasts you put out a week, you have what, three podcasts? Is that right? Are you
Yeah,
on three
three.
podcasts? Girl,
Yes, I
I'm
know.
so
Well,
impressed.
one is on a little break because I realized three is a lot. And
Okay.
I co-host the other two, so we could almost count those as halves. So let's just say I do like one and a half or two. But yeah, it is
I
a lot,
at
but I love
least
it.
two. I mean, I don't know. Good for you. I'm just like, I am not worried. Like, I don't know how
Oh
you
no.
have time in the day. Like, and you just have such a beautiful way of explaining the nuances of all these things. And I think that's something that
Thanks.
like is deeply needed, especially for business in a world where it was so kind of patriarchal focused, and like knowing how women can sit in that, like that's kind of a
Yeah.
lot. But I could soapbox. I won't. Let's go ahead and go to our focus of the episode, which
Yeah.
is our goals and boundaries and how we can kind of set that. And I think the first thing I want to talk about is how we can redefine success. And so I want to ask you, like, what did success used to look like for you, and what does it feel like right now? How is success different?
Whilst recovering from a cold, I don't know, but
You're like,
success looks like getting up and
well,
functioning.
I was just about to say that you're like literally getting vertical. That is what
Right.
success is for me.
No, the truth is I'm feeling better. And I think it's important to say that I don't sound great, but I am feeling better.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because part of what success looks like for me now, I'll start here, I guess, is being able to do what I've done for the last 2.5 weeks, which is literally almost nothing.
Yeah.
I've done almost nothing because I've created a business and a life that allows me that spaciousness to rest and recover when I need it. And my body was saying, you need it. And I would say in the past, I would have never for
Right.
just a cold given myself 2.5 weeks, right?
Right.
But this virus has just been really nasty. And it's funny though, even though I've done almost nothing every day. It's like if I have one thing I do that day, it's been like I feel accomplished.
Yeah.
But even so, I still feel my old messaging coming up. And I've had conversations
Yeah.
about this with some of my friends, which is like, I was actually kind of sad when I didn't have COVID or RSV or strep, and not because I wanted those things, but because I would have felt like I had gotten a permission slip from the doctor, like my doctor's note to say, here's your permission to rest. But because it
Totally.
just feels like an average cold, I still have this old messaging that's been coming up saying, well, you should be able to get up and work. You should be
No,
able to do
right.
stuff.
Right. Well,
Because,
and I remember when, like, before we hit record, you were like, it's not the flu, it's not COVID, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. And it's just, we had the air
right,
quotes of
just.
like this just a cold thing. And I'm like, I'm glad you're not violently ill, right? Like, I
I
mean,
know.
we're all glad in the physical sense that like it's air quote just a cold. But the permission slip thing is coming in so, I mean, I resonate so much with you when you're saying that. But
Yeah.
like, yeah,
And
it's
it's
just a
so
cold.
funny because I've done so much work in all of this stuff and it's still, all that programming
Still.
still comes up where I've still had to fight it. I've still had to have my community, my amazing like co-hosts and business partners showing up and saying, especially my one biz bestie who's been texting me and like sending me all these gifs of people saying like, I'm watching you, because she knows I have this tendency to, as you mentioned, I have a lot of
Overwork.
podcasts. I do a lot.
Yeah,
And
right.
honestly, most of the time it's because I thrive off it and I love it. And so it's great. But my body is telling me right now I need to slow down, and being able to give myself that space and permission, which is such a big part of it, the permission slip to slow down, has been challenging, but I'm glad that I've built a life that allows for it. Like I have been able to do that. I haven't had to freak out that I'm going to be late. Every person that I've had to reschedule with, change something has been incredibly understanding, because I live in a world now that is surrounded by people who care in the same way, who say, yes, take care of yourself first.
Right.
In the past, my version of success would have looked like showing up to work, or when I worked for someone else,
Near
or
dead.
yep. Or even when I worked for myself, working myself to death while sick, like sitting in my
Yes.
bed, working away, miserable because I
Right.
had deadlines to meet or people I would disappoint or, money to make. And all of
Yeah.
those things still matter. But also, I have built my life in a way now that allows flexibility, so that the number one priority is me and not the metrics or the output. And
Totally.
that's the biggest definition change for me, is that in the past, my definition of success looked like outcomes. And now my definition of success looks like internally, how am I? Right.
Mhm.
And that is most important. The outcomes are in service of how I want to feel.
Totally. Which I love that kind of opposite, right? We're kind of like flipping that on its head. And also what you said about the permission slip. The permission slip is previously and like traditionally coming from someone else, literally
Yes.
anyone else but you, right? Like you're not the guardian signing your own slip.
Right.
The doctor is
Right.
signing your slip, the
Your
professional signing
employer.
your slip, your employer, like no, like literally anyone but you. And now
Right.
the success part is you're signing your own permission slip.
Yeah, to care for myself, to do what I
Yes.
need. And that is, but I also want to say, because even though that is a massive shift and that has taken time, and I still feel the old messaging coming up. And I always think that's important to say, because I think people think there's some magic on off switch where you suddenly just push it and now you show up in a new way. And
Totally.
we have to know, like, we're still swimming in all the waters, even though I've been self-employed for 25 years, 20 years, whatever, a long time.
Oh, slow
And
clap for you. Can we acknowledge
right.
that for like quick minute? Had a girl.
It's been a minute, 2005. So I guess it's 20 years.
It's
And
amazing.
even though I've been self-employed that long, even though I've been on this journey of unlearning and unlearning patriarchal conditioning and all of that for probably 10 to 15 years, I still swim in these waters. It's the air I breathe every day. And so even though I've done the work, I can't escape it. And it still comes up. And I know that the important part for me is to recognize that and to not beat myself up when it does. And I just always
Totally.
want to share that, because I don't want
Yeah.
people to think in this episode, I'm going to give you the magic 1, 2, 3 solution where you change your life and then you never are bothered by patriarchal stuff again. That's
Right.
just not how it works.
Right. Well, just the way to acknowledge it with no shame, right? Like
That's
we
a
can just like
yes.
let the shame go. It's okay
Yeah.
if you're feeling it. We just need
Hmm.
to acknowledge that it's happening. And
Absolutely.
then we can kind
Yeah.
of like pick that apart a little bit. But like as soon as that self-shame, that's when
Hmm.
at least for me, like all the progress goes straight out the window and
I
I'm
have
back.
always said shame is the sharpest tool in patriarchy's toolbox. Shame is a weapon that is utilized against us to keep us in our place, because when we feel shame, we get stagnant. All right, that's when we get
Yes.
small. That's when we lock up. That's when we start to hide or run. We don't do that when we are free of shame, right? That's when the shoulders come
Yes.
back and up, and that's where we stand tall in our choices and what we do. And so we have to be careful when we feel shame coming up. We need to remember, oh, here it is. They're trying to use this against me. Remember that
Right.
it's not it's a tool that's being used against you.
Right. It's nothing that like you are putting on yourself. It's
Yeah.
society, patriarchy trying to just like
Hmm.
suppress that in you, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
that is such a good distinction as well. So since we have, I mean, I didn't even realize that you've been in business this long. So I'm just like, I mean, again, like I admire like so much of what you do, that adding on top of it. So with that ex- experience and expertise, like how, like why do so many business owners do you think tie success to the hustle, the productivity, the external validation? Like what emotions? I know we chatted about shame a little bit, but like what other emotions are keeping us locked up tight in there?
Well, it comes from that conditioning that starts when we're in elementary school, right? School is our first sort of training ground, or preschool, even if you're in that. It's the training ground to create good workers, right? That's what school's really designed to do, which is hard for a lot of people to hear, especially when we're a parent who sends our coolest kid off to school every day.
I was going to say that, like, louder for the people in the back.
Right, but that is exactly why public education was started, right? It's to create obedient people who will do as they're told, right? Rule followers who learn how to function within a workspace that has a clock in, clock out, listen to your boss, make sure you produce, make sure that you don't fight back, right? And that's what we're learning in school. There's other great things that come out of it, but behaviorally, that's what school is about. So we're learning this from our earliest days, and then we go into the corporate space. Now we are all primed to be good workers. We go there and it's all repeated. And all along the way, the carrot that's used is praise, is feedback. It's something that says, here's your gold star. I mean, literally when we're kids, it's gold stars.
Yes, literally.
Right?
Yes.
And so then that's where we start to associate that with our worth. Ooh, I got a gold star. I must be good, right? Because that's the system that's being perpetuated. And unfortunately, often what's happening in the home, because we all come out of the same system, our parents who are reinforcing that by delivering praise based on performance. Whether that is you got a gold star for your A's or you got a gold star because you hit the home run and you're on the baseball team.
Yes.
But it's about output, right? We don't get enough. And I think our generations are starting to shift some of this with our kids. So good for us. But historically, I don't think that parents have done the best job of giving praise based on your attributes, your immutable attributes as a human, right? I see that, like, I'm so proud of you for being caring. I'm so proud of you for resting when you needed it. I'm so proud of you
for like telling me what you need, right?
Exactly.
Tell me what it is, right? Yeah.
Right. These sorts of things. Instead, we take sort of like, oh, you got an A. Good job. Additional gold star. So all of it gets tied up in our self-worth. So then, of course, we start to define success by how many gold stars, figurative gold stars, sometimes literal, can I earn to feed that hole inside of me that says I'm not worthy unless I get them.
Yes.
And that's often how we end up finding a career. It's the first thing or the thing at some point we get the most gold stars for.
Well, it makes us feel good, right? I mean, like the more, because that's how we're like built and taught, like the most things that makes me feel good. And that's human nature, right?
Yeah, like, we want to feel good. We need to feel good.
Avoid pain, like go to pleasure. Right. I mean, feeling good with the gold stars, it's all this like reinforcement. So of course we chase the career path. Yeah.
Right. It starts to give us cortisol and dopamine and serotonin and the things that make us feel good and excited, right? It starts to feed those pleasure centers in our brain. And some of it too is like rooted in just like basic biology of we are by nature pack animals. We need to feel accepted. When we feel accepted, we feel safe. So when I'm getting praise for something, it makes me feel safe. And ultimately, that's what it's all about, is we need safety as humans.
Safety and community, right? I mean,
exactly.
If we don't have that,
we're
done.
And if that's what makes me feel safe.
Right? Like our evolutionary brain, like, and honestly, when you think about how many years it's been from caveman, basic human, like, caveman brain, cave people brain, right? Mm-hmm. Our evolution and our brain chemical system has not caught up to the nuances of society, mostly being that you don't have to agree with everyone in your life in order to be safe and have a community. But
certainly hasn't caught up to a world of social media, that's for sure. Right? Like,
we're gonna have to come back for social media. Like, we're gonna have to
we are evolving as a society much faster than our brains evolve. That is for certain. And so we are still very much feeding that lizard brain that says I need to feel safe. And the way that I do that is by knowing that people like me, right? And I hear from people all the time, will be like, oh, how do I get rid of this need for external validation? I hate that. It makes me feel bad about myself. Part of what I like to tell people, again, going to that shame-free thing, is it's actually okay to want external validation. Of course you want it. And this is why. You're never going to stop wanting or needing that. We all do. The change is, can I also learn to give it to myself? It doesn't have to be instead of. That's that binary thinking that we're all given. It's either this or that, which is, again, what we're learning in school because it helps us become great workers when we think on the binary. But the truth is, I love that you mentioned nuance because unfortunately, and this is not fun, because in a world of binary, talking about nuance isn't easy, and people tune out because we want the binary. I want the 1, 2, 3 steps. I want to know yes or no, this or that. But the truth is, there isn't that.
Yeah.
It can be both. It can be both. I need external validation. I need some of these measures of success, quote unquote, that I've been told.
Right.
And I can learn to give it to myself. And so for me, I think that's where we think the definition of success is like something outside of myself, something that I can earn, that I can achieve, that I can put up on the wall, that I can showcase, that I can tweet about, that gets me that external feeding of this hole that says I'm not worthy. And it can be both. We can have that, but also know that we can feed that for ourselves. And that's where the shift starts to happen.
It's such a beautiful shift. And before we go on the internal shift, I kind of want to talk about, like, because we do need external validation. I mean, that just is like sweet little humans. That's what it is. Something that I think gets missed sometimes is that we have, at least for myself, like, I found the ability in my like mid to late 20s to change the metric of success, like whose metric I cared the most about. So the external motivation when we're younger is usually like parents, teachers, peers. As we get older, we kind of learn that we can kind of like curate that list, right? Like, we can curate the people who, when they have opinions or, have that validation, like, do we care about it or do we not? Like, are you my metric for success or not? Have you experienced it, like, that's helpful and possible?
For sure. I think because, again, as we just said, that we are these tribal humans by nature, and so we are looking for that external success. Part of that then is, who am I surrounding myself by or surrounding myself with? And I don't love, I think it's Jim Rohr or somebody. I don't love quoting white men, and I don't even know if this is accurate. But when you look into masterminds, if you know much about mastermind groups, one of the things you always hear is this saying about how we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with, right? And that's the whole idea behind a mastermind group, is you surround yourself with like really smart people, really achieving people in these traditional kind of masterminds that generate traditional success. Because then it starts to rub off on us, right? We start to want to show up that same way. I think it is important that we think about who we are surrounding ourselves with, because that energy does feed into us, right? And we feed into that. And so knowing that, are we surrounding ourselves with people who still are buying into these traditional ideas of what success looks like? Because if we are, it becomes harder and harder for us, again, to be able to give ourselves permission to say, I don't have to behave that way. Because the comparison monster is real and tough. And when we're the 5 people that are nearest to us are chasing Louis Vuitton design. And again, there's no problem with wanting a Louis Vuitton bag. So anything I'm saying here is just like these traditional versions of like, I need to make X number of amount of money. I have to have a house that's a certain size. I have to have whatever. If that's all that they're talking about, if that's what their primary focus is, it's hard for you to shift away from that and say, no, I want my focus to be about, how much time do I have with my family? Right?
Experiences,
how much love is in my life? Exactly. Right. It's hard to make that shift when you're not surrounded with people who are in that with you. So I think it's very important. And what a massive shift for me has been, who are the people I'm spending time with? Because it changes everything. Because again, with the sickness, when that thought started coming up, I need my doctor's note to give myself permission to sit here and relax for 3 weeks. I could check in with the people that are nearest to me. And guess what they said?
Rest, sister. Yeah, stop it.
Yeah,
you don't like.
You need this. Yeah, this is how you want to show up. Like, they're those reminders for me. If I were still surrounding myself with the 5 people who were saying, "Get off your ass and get to work," like, you got to go make that money, sister. Whatever.
Or the like, it's just a cold.
Yeah,
the people who are like telling that. Right.
Or the ones who like to tell you, I had it so much worse and I showed up at work, or
what,
right?
Oh, right.
And we know those people.
Totally.
That isn't going to help you, especially when you're in this more delicate phase of not really being able to do it for yourself yet. Right. And so, yes, what you said is so important. I think it does matter who we're surrounding ourselves with.
Yeah, I just remember that. I mean, it felt like this huge light bulb that just went off, and so much of my behavior ended up shifting for the better, because it was a quick yes or no question of like, are they my metric for success? And it was it was one specific person at a time, right?
Yeah.
It was just like, hey, is this person my metric? Yes or no? And
Yeah.
if
I
it
look
was
at it like,
no,
do we
then
share values, right?
yes.
Are we on the same sort of path in life? It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be like my friend's version of success might look like having, I don't know what, more rest or something than I generally want because I'm not somebody who actually likes to rest all that much. I
Totally.
do want to have spaciousness to be well, but maybe mine looks a little different. But we're both on this path of like liberating ourselves from the chains that have been binding us all into this traditional belief system that success has to look one way, and it does not. There
Right.
are as many definitions of success as there are people if we allow ourselves those definitions, right? If
Right.
we allow ourselves to have our own definition. But most of us just go through the motions and buy into the definition that we are sort of spoon-fed first in
Totally.
school, then in work, and in pop culture, in religion, and all the places it shows up. And so until we actually make a conscious effort to change that, we are going to buy into it.
You're gonna buy into it, and then you're gonna kind of go into these, you know, mental health spirals and the burnout spirals and the shame spirals. I mean, it's just it's never gonna stop. I mean,
Communities that reinforce it for you, the girl bossy
right,
spaces or whatever.
right. If I have to hear the word girl boss one more time, like I'm just a boss. Okay, that's
I
it.
girl
That's
bossed a little too close to the sun for a while and realized, no, that's not good. When we talk about previous definitions of success, like even though I had been doing a lot of this work, I got into the online business space and I found myself falling for the same things of like, well, I'm not successful if I don't have an email list that's a certain size. I'm not successful if I don't get my social media following to this. I'm not
totally
successful if I'm not making 7 figures. I think now it's like 8 figures is becoming, which is
right.
ridiculous.
Insane.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I could feel that.
Yeah.
And again, it is because what rooms am I in?
Yes.
Changing the rooms have been in has changed everything. And I have to change those rooms before I'm ready. Right.
Yes.
And
Oh, of
that's the hard and
course.
scary part for people.
Yes. I mean, I always want to be the smallest dog in the room when it
Hmm.
comes to like the growth that I want to see for myself. It's
Hmm.
not the dog who makes the least amount of money in the room to get to the
Right.
biggest, right? It's just whatever value I'm checking into and whatever like what I want to see for myself. I want to be the person with the least experience in it. I want
Yeah, I mean,
everyone else.
I also love being able to share, and I'm sure you do too. So there are
No,
times where,
right.
right, yeah. But it is wonderful when you are sitting in spaces where you feel like you're learning,
You're
where you're being
stretching.
held, where you're being you're being pulled and guided in the most loving way pulled, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I think that's so
Stretch.
important.
No, that stretch is so good. I mean, when you talk about your clients and like the process and that discomfort of the grief of letting go of these traditional markers of success, how do you help your clients kind of step through those and like make that stretch happen? What does it look like?
The first piece is exactly what you said, which is grief. And I think that's so important. And I go back to this all the time about we have to be with those feelings because so often this messaging that we have, this either or, is I'm either in that place or I'm now like past it and better. Like we don't allow space for the messy middle. That's why I co-host a podcast called Messy Liberation. That's all about this, about managing this messy part of what it looks like to go from being in this bought into capitalism kind of space into a liberated space. That doesn't happen overnight. And that's not easy. And in fact, the truth is, as I said, because I'm always breathing this oxygen, I'm never going to be at the place of fully done. All right. I
Right,
will
right.
always be on the path. And
Yeah.
so the first part is really sitting with that grief and understanding I have to hold space for this. I have to allow for this. Instead of trying to shove it down, push it aside, pretend it doesn't exist, be with it, allow space for that. There needs to be some room. And we do grief work. I do grief work with clients all the time around, what do I need to process? Do I need to write a letter to my former self? Can I
Yes.
envision the future version of me talking to me now? What would she tell me, right? There's things that we can
Yes.
do to help ourselves in this process and to know that just like grief over a loved one, over the death of a loved one, which never ends, it changes, but it
Yes,
never
right,
ends.
right.
This grief will change, but never end. And that's okay. So I think that to me is the first place it's really important. And then we kind of move into that redefining success and what does it look like. And when we do, the biggest thing, and I don't know if we touched on this, we kind of did, but to remember that the real shift is that it's not about external outcomes. It's not about the things I'm going to get, which is often how most
Mhm.
of us design. When we sit down to pick out our goals for the year, I'm going to make this much money. I'm going to get this many clients. I'm going to have this many downloads. It's like all of this quantifiable stuff. And the real shift
STEM,
is,
right? Like the STEM goals, like you hear this
right,
all the time with all the like they have to be I don't even
smart goals.
smart.
Smart.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep. You're all
Smart
mhm.
goals.
Right. They have to
That's
be
STEM.
measurable and
Yes.
actionable and
All
timeline
these
and all that.
things. And that's not how life
Those
is.
Well, no, I mean, we can chase that, but what happens is it's empty. Most of us, we get there and guess what happens? There's a new goal because it isn't filling anything.
Well, because like you've gotten there, right? And then it's like, well, now that it's checked off, like that level of like happiness and, oh, I got a star is
called
so
the hedonic
fleeting.
treadmill for anyone who wants to look it up. The hedonic treadmill is that very feeling of there's always more, right? There's never going to be a finish line, which is why we see folks like Jeff Bezos and et al. Who are still like, they have all the money in the world and they're not happy. Like they want more. Like we most of us sit here and go like, what's enough? But the truth is, if we look at ourselves, we also don't know what's enough for us. Most people have no idea what their enough is. Totally. They're just on the same treadmill, just in a different place. But the truth is, if we won the lottery, and that's where the hedonic treadmill came from, they've studied people who win the lottery, and most people who win the lottery end up broke again. And you know why? Because they got so uncomfortable being rich. Because they thought it was going to answer their problems, and it didn't. They got more wealthy, more money, more problems. They got wealthy, and that piece went away. And there's no discounting the fact that not having money is challenging. It's difficult. Like there is a certain amount of money. It used to be 70,000. I'm sure it's higher with inflation, but there is a certain amount of money that we need to have safety and security. That's real.
Net, right?
Everything beyond that, though, is actually, it doesn't do anything to change our happiness, right? Because it doesn't fundamentally change who we are. And so we're still, all the same problems we had before remain beyond the safety and security stuff. But the parts about like, am I worthy? Does anyone love me? Right? Those things don't change just because, like all the none of that changes with more money.
Right.
So when we set goals in this new way, it's not about those things. It's how do I want to feel? And that's the most important thing. So like when we're setting year goals, at the end of the year, how do I want to feel? That's where we need to start. How do I want to feel?
I've always thought, like, when I think about setting goals, it used to be like, what's the type of person I want to become? You know, like, what are kind of the values that, like, I want to chase? What are kind of the, like, base qualities that I admire in myself and I want to keep? And then what are the ones that are a bit toxic? Hey, girl, hey. Like, you got to kind of quelch that. Like, is that the same? Like, how would we be doing that differently?
It's similar, but I actually think, in my mind anyway, those also are in service of the how I want to feel, right? So if I am releasing some of those traits that make me feel more toxic and welcoming more of these other traits, how does that make me feel about me, right? I feel kinder. I feel more caring. I feel more spaciousness. What is it that I feel? Because then once we know what we want to feel, so a year from now, I want to feel spacious. I want to feel relaxed, whatever the things are, right? Really think about how do I want to feel? And you can even envision like, what does that look like in practice then? Right? Yeah. Which is usually sort of the next step I would take is, so what does it look like in practice? I know I want to feel these things. So what does that mean? What does my day look like? Am I getting up at 7 and going to the gym? Or am I getting up at 10 because I want to sleep in and I'm tired of rushing? Like, thinking about that, how many people am I seeing during the day? How much am I talking or not talking? How much am I interacting with others or not? How much time am I getting with my family? Really, what does it look like in practice? So once we know how we want to feel, what are the actions, like what does it actually look like when I'm feeling that way? What are the things I'm doing? That's when we get into then who do I need to be and what do I need to do to make that happen?
To make it happen. So there's just a few steps in between there. And that is so beautiful. I mean, it's like when I was thinking about it, it was always kind of like larger picture. And then, you know, my schedule daily is broken up in order to give me the space, to give me the rest, but not really the rest of it. Right? Yeah. I mean, it was too linear of like, what do you feel with your time?
And we can do this. I said a year because not most people, but a lot of people love to do year planning, and that's great. You can have a bigger picture. You can, like, as a family, I think it's great to do it as a family. And what do we want our family to look like in 10 years, right? Or as a couple, what do we want this to look like? Yeah. You can do it as a year. You can do this. I think personally, as self-employed entrepreneurs, our business and personal lives are the same. So I don't think you need separate plans. I think that you need to do this as one. Yeah. But you could do this in a month, this week, or today, right? So when you've done, maybe you do the bigger picture first, or maybe you're somebody who likes it more granular. Because I think part of the problem is traditionally we think there's a one-size-fits-all solution for planning, and there's just not. Right. Got to figure out what feels right for you. So you might be the kind of person who just says, I don't like, and I've met these people, I'm not them, but I've met them who are like, I don't want to think long-term. That starts to feel like a straitjacket to me. I can't do it. It's
too constricted. I love that shit. Do you know
Me
what I mean? I'm
too.
like, I love to like go out and then work
Yes.
it back in, right? So then we get
Not having
granular.
a plan to me feels like I'm about to fall off a cliff.
I'm
Like, no.
dying. Yeah,
Right.
dying.
But I've met people who are the opposite where they're like, no, it's too restrictive. So
I mean, I
whatever
love
works for
them.
you. But if
Right.
you are those people, then it's just each day you wake up and say to yourself, how do I want to feel by the end? When I put my head on the pillow tonight, how do I want to feel about today? Step one.
Love
So
that.
what does it look like that supports that then today? What would my day kind of look like? Now to make that day happen, how do I need to show up? Who do I need to be?
Yeah.
Right. And then what are the things I actually need to do to make that happen? So we do that either on a big, mid, or like daily plan. But that is that change in how we start to define success and how we start to actually create plans around it.
I mean, because again, like, what is it? What's the quote where it's like, a wish is just a dream without a backup plan, or
Yeah,
something
something
like
like
it's
that.
something like that, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we can like think about how we want to feel, and I love that part where like it starts on the inside. You got to make it real on the
But
outside.
then what?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, right. Like,
And if you start on the outside, you may be doing all the wrong things to actually get to where you want to feel, which is why it ends up feeling empty. But you're
yes,
right. If you're only basing on, I just want to feel like cool today. Okay, but what does that actually mean? Like, what are you doing then? Like, what does that mean?
right,
And we
right.
also have to apply it to our real life. Like, I could say, I just want to feel super relaxed today. And what I could just make that mean, so I'm just going to sleep all day. But then my kid doesn't get to school. He doesn't get picked up from school. He doesn't eat. Like, right. I have to live
Right.
inside of the real world. So how do I make the day that is within the life I'm living deliver the results that I'm looking for and how I feel, right? And
Yes.
that does mean who do I need to be today? Which might mean I have to like let go of unrealistic expectations. That might be part of the prescription for my day, right?
Yes.
To be able to get the results I want. And then
Right.
the things like how many downloads do I get or how much money am I making? Those things are only in support of building the day or the year or the life that you want, right?
Right.
And that's what helps us start to get to what's enough, right? Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos probably hasn't thought about all this or he has, and the thing he wants to feel is like a tyrant. Okay,
I was gonna
success
say,
then.
if he wants to feel like a monster, then like you got
Right,
it.
he's
So,
succeeding, check.
check
But
box.
more than likely, it's because they have these people who are just constantly chasing wealth and yet still always seem to be unhappy. It's because they haven't actually figured out how they want to feel in life. Like what
Right.
actually would make them feel good.
Well,
Because
like
once we
what
know
is
that, then we can
actually
say what's enough.
yes,
Yeah,
what is actually enough? Like that's I mean,
right?
I think that ends up being the question that deep down or not so deep
Hmm.
down, like all of us are chasing in all
Yep.
the different facets of our life 24/7, 365.
Well,
It's
it can
that.
scare people, actually. It's been interesting for me, too, when I start talking to people about enough. There are people, because of this conditioning we receive, in capitalism, there isn't enough, right?
Right.
Capitalism doesn't want you to ever think there's enough
Well, that's the
because then
very
you're,
definition.
yeah, because
It's
then you're not
never
a good
enough.
consumer,
Right.
right? We need consumers who are constantly hungry for more. If you're not constantly consuming, capitalism fails, right? So
Right.
it's teaching you that there's never enough. So when people start to wrestle with this enough, and I do this with clients all the time, there is a fear that will come up. People will start to feel these feelings of, I don't want to feel like I'm settling. I don't want to feel like I'm failing,
Isn't that
right?
interesting? The settling
Yes,
in quotes,
exactly.
like the negative
Right.
connotation
The
of
idea that you're not constantly chasing for more and trying to
right.
be Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or whoever, or even just trying to be like, I don't know, Oprah, who's maybe better, but still a billionaire,
Sure.
so no good.
Yeah, sure.
Um, it's never going to be enough, right? And it just
Right.
isn't enough. And so I just think it's so important for us to get comfortable with enough.
Mhm.
Enough doesn't mean not enough. That's settling. Not
Right.
enough would be settling.
Well, and again, like when we think of like enough, right? Safety, like
Hmm.
having a place to come home to.
Hmm.
You're not freezing to death. You're not starving to I mean,
Hmm.
like it's very at least on the
Well,
like the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? Like it's
the
very
Maslow,
basic.
it can be more than that though, right? So the
Yes.
hierarchy, your enough might be that it's not just about my safety and security. It may also, because then comes belonging. So I also want to have enough that I'm able to vacation with my friends. Okay, that's not wrong. That's not bad to
Right.
want that.
Right.
There's no like inside of this, I think other times people think too, when we start talking about enough, we're talking about deprivation, right? Like I have to
Right.
sacrifice. I can't have the things I want in life. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
For most people, when we've done enough numbers and I sit down and I say, dream big. What do you really want?
Yeah.
Do you want somebody to come and clean your house once a week or twice a week? Do you want somebody to come and make meals for you whatever? Like dream big. The truth is almost every person's big dream costs so much less than they think it does,
Yeah,
right? When
that's
they
what I
actually
mean.
put pen to paper,
That's
right?
that's what I mean.
Right.
When they're just like chasing I mean, and so much of it is coming from social media and just media in
Yes.
general. But you're just like, do you actually need and have to worry about making so much cash for
No
the
one
life that
needs to
you
be a
want? Like,
billionaire. And
no,
let me say as clearly as
nobody.
I can. No one needs to be a billionaire. And in fact, as they say, every billionaire is a policy failure. You cannot be a billionaire without being an unethical person, without making your money unethically. Let me say that.
Yeah, right,
Because some people don't like the
right.
attack on the person. I get it. But there's no way to become a billionaire without extracting from others, paying subpar, below living wage
Mm-hmm.
money,
Mm-hmm.
without taking from others so that you can enrich yourself. That's the only method of becoming a billionaire. We don't need
Right.
to be billionaires, but you can have an amazing life without being a billionaire. You can have an
Totally.
amazing life, honestly, without being a millionaire. But if that's what
Yes.
you need to be, that's also okay.
Right.
But the encouragement is to sit down and actually figure it out, because I will tell you, 99% of people have never sat down, figured out what they actually truly want their life to look like and what it costs. I have a formula, like I have a worksheet I have people fill out that you have to
Brilliant.
actually, a spreadsheet. You list it all out down to
Yep.
like, what's my mortgage if I have one? How
Yes.
much am I putting away for retirement? How much is my, my savings fund to include vacations, whatever? How much am I spending on clothes? What am I spending on cable, on phone? Like literally everything,
Right.
a budget like you
Everything.
would do for your household, but it's your dream budget.
Yes.
Sit down and do it. And I
Yep.
promise you, you will be like, oh, it's still going to be a lot for most people, because a
Sure.
lot of people dream
Because,
big. It'll be a lot, but
well,
it's not
and
going to be billions. It won't be billions. You don't need to be a
no,
billionaire.
no. Well, I mean, and the other thing too, so I recently did the exercise of like the 6-month emergency fund, put it in a
Mhm.
high yield savings account, right? I mean, I just, and again, why it took me so long, who the hell knows? Whatever, I did it. Easy. I mean, I was just like, if this is half the year that we need, right? Like, need to stay in our house, like eat reasonably, just like base level, right? Base level.
Right.
I don't know why
It's
I'm
so
worried
funny.
about it. You know
Most
what
of
I mean?
us are thinking that we need to be billionaires to have a life we want. So then we are supporting policies, not to get like too far off into politics
Mhm.
here, but we end up supporting policies that are in favor of some future version of us that we think we need to become, that are actually costing us as we are now.
So
Which, if we
much.
actually sat down and did this work and realized what we really need to make, we would be like, oh, that's right. I probably could tax the billionaires and I'll still be okay, because I never need to be that person.
Well,
We don't
and
have to go down that fact too,
yeah,
but
no, right. I mean, amen to everything you're saying, right? Because
that's
I'm
part
like,
of the freedom that comes in this, I think. And I think
yes.
people are often, because we have so much shame and fear and all this other stuff around money, again, especially as women or people with marginalized identities, because patriarchy wants us and needs us, capitalism needs us to function that way, because it likes us being in this state of just constant consumption without any real knowledge.
Right.
And so we're so afraid of doing the work that we never do. And so then we sit sort of in this place of, I don't know, I just know it sounds good to be a billionaire. So yeah, I just don't want to tax the rich because I might be that person someday. And if we just sat down and did the work, it changes so much, because we can actually start to align our lives and our voting and everything else with our actual values. But most of us just don't
Yeah.
ever do it. So I can't
I just,
encourage you enough.
no, I mean, it's interesting you bring this up because I never thought of like, I honestly, it helps me to understand the other side a little better when you say that people aren't voting to tax the rich because they are hoping to be that one day. I never understood the reason why you wouldn't,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
it's clearly in you're putting up a wall for your own interests. Like you are getting in
Yes.
your own,
Yes.
or like that policy is getting in your way. You are voting for that.
Yeah. We
I
see
never
people vote against
understood
their
that.
self-interest all the time, and it's
Yeah.
because people don't recognize they're not voting against their current self-interest. Well, they're voting against their current self-interest in favor of a future version of themselves they think will exist. And that's because it's American dream that we've been sold, right? The myth of the American dream, the myth of meritocracy, which people can read more about all of that if they want.
Yeah,
But
sure.
one of the steps of opting out of all of that, and the ways that we can help more people start to make better decisions, is by doing these kinds of exercises with
Right.
them,
Do
right?
the
To sit
exercise.
to sit down and actually figure out what's enough. Encourage people in your life to say what's enough. And I will tell you, so many people will bristle at it. They will be afraid, and ask them what those fears are about. And I think one of the important things we can always ask ourselves is, who made me feel this way? Who or
Yes.
what made me feel this
What?
way?
When? Well, and like when am I
Right.
feeling this way? Both in
Yeah.
your life,
Hmm.
long term, like age, right? Age and like just like system
Yeah.
of life, like when you were this happening
Right.
and the who and the what.
And another question is who benefits from me feeling this way, which is always a really, really good one.
That's a big
Because
one.
guess who benefits from me thinking I need to constantly be consuming? Jeff Bezos.
No, right.
Right?
All these like old rich white dudes and billionaires.
And
right?
who doesn't benefit? Me, right?
Right.
I'm the one up benefiting. And we can look at that in so many parts of our life. So, okay,
Yes.
I've ranted. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'm here for the rant. I am in full encouragement of rant.
Okay, good.
I don't like to enable a lot of things. I will enable that.
I love a rant.
100%. So let's talk about goal setting that kind of honors your values better and how we can add the emotional part in that. So let's talk about like why do traditional goal setting methods feel flat and honestly like kind of triggering for so many of us? Like why does it happen?
Again, I think it's because they are usually so fixated on outcomes, almost always. Like you said, SMART goals, so much of it is fixated around this idea of it being measurable, quantifiable. It has to be something we can fit into this traditional box. So then often we're manufacturing things just so that it fits that kind of method. And it's especially for, I think, women or people who identify as women, non-binary folks, people on the margins, people who have not been pushed into the sort of cis male box that says everything has to be logical and reasonable and right makes sense. For so many of us, we've always relied on our feelings and our intuition. And I could talk a lot about why, but it's about safety. For those of us who have had to worry in a world of cis men having and cis white men having power, many of us, where if we look at our lineage, I mean, women weren't allowed to get educated for a very long time. Black folks weren't allowed to have an education for a very long time, right? We had traditional education,
Yes.
quote unquote.
Right.
The gatekeepers kept us out. We had to rely on our feelings, our intuition. We still do around men to say, do I feel safe here? Here comes a strange man. Do I feel the little hairs on my back, right? Like we know this. We inherently know in a way that cis white men don't understand. Having to rely on our feelings to function and be safe.
Yeah.
But goals don't focus on feelings.
Well, traditional goals, right?
Traditional goal setting is focusing on logic and reason and all of the stuff that has been traditionally the space and owned by cis white men.
Well, and like I guarantee you, if we were to go into an interview right now for a corporate job of any kind, and they're like, "What are your goals?" I could guarantee you that when we put, how we want to feel and just kind of exist in the world, that would be a non-answer. Like even to this day, which is
for sure
insane.
In many workspaces, hopefully in some more liberated workspaces, there aren't a lot of those, but the ones that exist, they would lead with, how would you like to feel inside this job, right? And then it becomes, and what supports that? Right. And that's what I'm talking about with goals. It's not about only how do I want to feel, like you mentioned, because that's not enough. But we want to start there because that's what it looks like to do things human first. And I am about human first workspaces, human first goals. Human first goals start with how do I want to feel as a human? And we understand that as people who've had to rely on feelings, that feels right. When we sit down to do goals in that way, it can feel a little odd because we're not used to it. Right. But if we can free ourselves from some of that, we start to say like, oh yeah, this feels really good. It feels nice to honor.
Yeah.
Yes. And we can feel that. That's why the traditional method often doesn't feel good for us because it's like we're forcing ourselves into a box that we've never really been invited into. Sure. And we're trying to make that work for us. Instead, we're saying, no, let's start with the way that we understand. We've historically shown up, which is how do I feel? How do I want to feel? What makes me feel safe? And then it's like, okay, and then what's in support of that? And those things are also important. But without them, we're just machines. And we aren't machines. We are humans. AI hasn't taken over yet. We are still humans.
Yet, girl.
And so, right, exactly. And the thing that makes us different is our feelings.
Yes.
And we need to honor that then. How do I want to feel? And then what supports that? And the same thing with those traditional employers. How do you want to feel in the job? And then what supports it? Or at those annual reviews, instead of saying, show me the 10 things you did, how do you feel right now? An employer that actually cared about you, right, as a human and not your output, would start those meetings by how do you feel? How did you want to feel? How are you feeling? And then let's talk about what were the things that helped? What were the things that were in support of you getting to the place you did feel right? What are the things that kept you from feeling? That's what an end of year or whatever review should look like. It's not in most places because we don't function human first in this country or really in this world. And we need to shift that.
Right. Well, I mean, even when I go to do my own annual business meeting with me, myself, and me, like it's a lot of output. Like that's just, I mean, kind of, I mean, I have this section where it's like what worked and what
Mm-hmm.
didn't. That needs to change to
Mm-hmm.
how are we feeling? What
Mm-hmm.
was in support of us feeling proud
Yes.
and good and
Yes. Yes. Yes.
full?
Yes.
And, what wasn't? Yeah,
Yes,
the
I
opposite.
have
Yeah.
started. I have a little daily bullet journal where every day I track my mood, and then I put 3 words for kind of just describe the day, right? Energized, meh. Sometimes I just use meh, right? Like empowered,
Yeah.
excited, whatever the things are. And along with that, I track what was the best thing that happened to me that day so that I can kind of
Yes.
notice, like, okay, what were some of the things? I also track things like the weather because I
Oh,
know that
love
that
that.
very much affects my mood. I also track things like my menstrual cycle because that can
Yes.
affect my mood,
Totally.
right? So keeping track of some of these things, whatever they may be for you, you can take data like that. If you like to see data, you
We
can
love seeing
track your data, right? So we
Yeah.
could track my mood on a chart. If I rate
Right.
my mood 1 to 5 every day, I could be putting that into my same spreadsheet and starting to notice then, along with other metrics, is there any correlation here between these things?
Well, even like you're saying, what is so it'd be like happy today, and it's because I went
Mm-hmm.
for a run.
Yep.
Insert
Mm-hmm.
example. I bet if we tracked that hard enough, the why, it's not going to be because, for instance, I booked another coaching
10,000.
client
Right.
or I got
more downloads.
$10,000. Right. Like, it's not, we're not going to
Although I will honor that sometimes it is. There have been times in my journal
Sure.
where, because of the pride that I felt about booking a new client, that
Mhm.
was something that was in support of how I want to feel, because I do want to feel proud of myself. And there's
Yes.
nothing wrong. Like, I also think it's so important in these discussions just to make sure people know this is not either or, right? Going back to that
Yes.
binary, it can be both. This is not to say that you can't be proud because you got a big paycheck. Celebrate it. Hell
No,
yeah, especially
I'm
if it's
super excited about
yeah,
it. Like
exactly,
when I
right?
book stuff that I'm
Especially
excited
if
about,
it's
like,
in
yeah.
support of that, like how I want to feel. Part of it is I know my enough number is this. Hey, I got my nut to make my enough number. Yay, that can affect our mood. And sometimes, by the way, our mood can be down because we didn't land the client. And that's also okay to honor. So I just to be clear, like it can be
No,
those things
right.
too, but you're right.
In the
Often,
minutia of the day, right? Like
right.
day to day, I'd
A
imagine
lot of
it's
times it is
more.
because, yeah, I got outside.
Yeah,
I
got
snuggled with my
outside.
kid. That often makes
Right.
my list,
Right.
right?
Like
These are the things
I
that
had a
matter.
conversation with like one of my tribe, right? That I'm just like, this is
Yeah.
one of my community that really like I held tight, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
any of those things. And I think that's kind of the things we end up forgetting about when we go to do our like pluses and minuses of like, oh, how's the day going and how's the business going? Like we kind of end up forgetting
How am
these little
I
things.
inside of this business?
Right.
Number one, right? Yeah, and we
I put
don't.
the I in business, and there's 2 I's actually, which means right,
Which
like
means we really need to
2x.
focus on it.
Yeah, the 2x the I. Like,
Yes, I really encourage people to think about those things far more often when you're doing your CEO days. And if you're not doing those, start doing them. But in those CEO days, so often, especially in like the more traditional kind of business spaces, it is solely focused on outputs.
Mhm.
And we need to focus on ourselves first, right? How have I felt in my business? And that's why I think doing it more often is important. So that you're having more touch points to notice, how am I feeling? And then again, what's supporting that? And then also, what am I wanting to feel and what's taking me away from that? Those are that's the most valuable data that we can get. And we rarely collect it.
Well, no, because we have such a low value on intuition and emotion. And
Yeah,
that just isn't
and our
the
own
case.
needs. Because,
Right.
It's so funny. So many of us flee corporate America. And not everyone who's self-employed has, but many of us
Me.
have fled traditional employment. Me too. Corporate America, not for very long because I started my business so long ago, but
No,
I did
right.
work in corporate America
Me
for a
too.
while.
Short time. Me too.
And we flee it because we don't fit inside those boxes. And either we've been forced out because that happens so often. And then you're like, what do? I start a business, or I can't fit in here.
Yeah.
And we start a business. And so often when we do that, we're like, I hated that space. I hated corporate America. It didn't work for me. It was a box I couldn't fit inside of. And yet we replicate it for ourselves and our businesses. And it's okay because we don't know different.
Right.
But as you learn more, we need to change that. And if you are wanting to run a human first business, which is not what corporate America does. Right. Corporate America is a money first business, right?
Product
Profit
first. Output.
Not even
profit.
product first, right? Profit first. Product is second in support of that. And then humans just make the products to get the profit, right? That's really how they think of it.
Yeah.
So it's a profit first. And this is not to say you can't also be profitable in a human first business. Yes, you need to be, or you're not running a business.
Right.
But you need to make a human first business, right?
Mm-hmm.
For you, if you have employees, I hope that you think about some of these things we talked about, because
Yeah.
same thing, if you're running a human first business, your metrics of success for your employees should not just be about outputs. It should be about how they feel inside your business. That's important. And for our customers, our metrics should not be how much are they paying me, but how satisfied are they with me?
Right.
How often are they recommending me? What are they saying about me, right? We want happy customers. And guess what? Very often when we are happy, our clients are happy, our customers are happy, the communities we exist in are happy, the money follows.
Right. I mean, that's the thing that I think, I am guilty of this as well, right? I'm like,
me
once
too.
I'm profitable, like once I figure it out, like I will be happy, it'll follow. And it's like, right. And it's like, no, honey, like I think that's the question, right? It's like, we want to guide, like how you guide your clients to set goals that actually energize them instead of draining them, so that they can get to this state where like they're running their business on happiness and kindness and rest, and then the money follows. What does it look like for you?
Well, I think that enough piece. I mean, we've talked about a lot of the parts, right? Like identifying how you want to feel, what's in support of that, all of that, understanding you're enough, so that when you're setting goals, some of it, so often when clients come to me, is about right sizing. And that's hard. It can be hard for people because you've existed inside these systems that say more, 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 now, right? Capitalism is about how much and how fast.
Right.
And we're saying enough. And then also, how do I do that in a way that allows me to survive and thrive? Because I could get there faster, maybe, but I'll burn myself out doing it, which is the traditional model.
Well,
but
if
I don't want
for the long haul, right?
It's not human first. It's not good. It's not what we really want. And yet, how often are we doing that, right?
Yes. Right.
So it's about saying, how do I do this in a way that is human first, that it gives me what I say I want? And that may extend how long it takes to get there. That can be hard for people when there are other business coaches out there telling them that I'm going to get you to 6 figures in 6 months, whatever, right?
Right.
Sure, they may. But at what cost? What does that look like, right? How are you going to feel?
Yeah.
But for people who are like, no, I really am invested in saying, I want to run a business that's sustainable, that feels good, in which I get to have the feelings first, where I get to create something that feels right for me, where I know I'll get to my enough number with time.
Yeah.
That's part of it, is right sizing those expectations, is saying, what does that realistically look like then? And that could be really hard for people, but it's an important part of this process, is saying, okay, what's realistic given my capacity, because of things like familial responsibilities, if I'm a parent or not, if I'm caretaking for elder parents, given
if you have another job, maybe
chronic illness. Yes, if I have another job, I'm never the person who's going to say, if you really believed in your business, you'd go all in right now. Like, that's not the stuff that's in support of a human first business. For my own business, it looked like shifting, gears, where one was 10% and 90, and then it was 20 and 80, and then it was 30 and 70, right? Like this gradual shift.
Right.
So figuring all of those things out, so that as you're going after your goals, you're doing it in a way that honors you first and allows you to do it in a way that's sustainable. And sustainability doesn't look like, how fast can I put on the gas so that then I break down in 6 months and then I wonder why my business has fallen apart.
Right. It just completely defeats the purpose of trying to start the business in the first place. If we can't have it sustainable.
So often. I've done it. You've probably done it. We've all sort of done that.
We've all done it. Yeah, we've all done it. I know I've gotten into a swing. I know you have too. Where like burnout isn't a thing, because we're able, we've kind of been able to like troubleshoot that with our active rest. We've been able to kind of like, diagnose it before we get there and like plan for that. But yeah, I think it's so easy for people just to be like, this is where I want to get financial wise. This is the time I want to do it, and like screw everything else. Right?
If you're willing to do things at all costs, that's fine. But this is not the kind of goal setting you do then, because setting, the kind of goal setting that you're going to do, if you're like, I want to hit whatever it is at all costs, then it looks like outputs first. And then you start to think, then what do I have to do to get to those outputs? Yes. And that might look like I have to work 12 hours a day. Okay.
No, right.
But so that's not human first.
No, right. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. So let's give the example of a feeling goal and then how that shifts decision making.
Yeah. Well, it changes everything, right? So like, again, let's just say, we can just do it on the macro of like, or is that the micro? I'm so bad. Macro's big. The micro wide. Of like, we're doing micro then of a day. So if I wake up today and instead of saying today, I want to make $500 as a number, right?
Yeah.
If I say I got to make $500 today, and by the way, I just want to honor that for some people, that may still be the reality, right? If you are in survival mode, sometimes we don't get to show up human first, right? Because we have to just survive. I got to do what I got to do.
Just get
So a
through
lot
it.
of this, I want to just make sure I'm clear that there's some privilege in this conversation and that it's based on saying that for people who are already having basic survival needs met, right? Because again, that 70,000 or whatever the number is, like, but for those kinds of folks, when I wake up, I could say, and let's up the number in that case and say, I got to make $1,000 today. Whatever it is, I got to make $1,000. Well, then if I'm doing that, not starting with feelings, but starting with the outcome, then I start to think about, well, I probably need to make 500 calls so that I can get X number to convert. So I get the blah, blah, blah. And I'm now all fixated on go, go, go. What are the actions I got to do? And those actions may not feel good. I might look at that and say, oh, I don't want to do it, but I guess I have to, right? I should, I need to, I must.
Right.
So it's already a different energy that you're bringing to the room.
Yeah.
And by the way, it will probably change your output as well, because often when we show up with that energy, it's not great. We show up on the call with that energy and we wonder why people aren't buying. But even that aside, right, it's becoming action dictated first based only on the output. If we swap it and say, how do I want to feel today? By the end of the day, I want to feel, let's say, accomplished, or I want to feel proud. I want to feel a little more secure. Any of those feelings can be valid. Okay, so if that's what I want to feel, then who do I need to be today to feel more accomplished? That might look like I need to be somebody who shows up with confidence, with their shoulders back, right?
Yeah.
What do I need to do to be that person? Well, I need to have a pep talk from my bestie because she always helps me feel that way. Or I need check-ins with my community. Or I need to snuggle with my kid first because that always gives me that, whatever those things are, right?
Whatever. Right.
So now I know who I need to be and some of the things I need to do to support that. Okay, now what are the actions I need to take? These come last, but I'm already in a different headspace.
Yes.
I'm already feeling like I have some support. I'm feeling more resourced. And now I start to say, okay, well, what are the things that would help me feel accomplished today? Maybe it's making $1,000, but can I also can I right those expectations? Mm-hmm. Can I take that number down to the point where I no longer feel accomplished? What if I say 750? Do I still feel accomplished at 750? Do I feel accomplished if I made 10 calls, even if no one bought?
Right. Just doing it.
I took some action.
Doing the steps, right? Yeah.
So it's looking at all the possible things that could get you to a feeling of accomplishment and asking yourself honestly, what of these things would make me feel accomplished? And it could end up looking like there's 4 or 5 things that would actually get you to that desired feeling by the end of the day. And now you get to kind of pick and choose, and you're doing it in a way that you feel good and resourced, right? It changes sort of everything about how you show up. And then at the end of the day, you got to go back and say, okay, do I feel accomplished? Did these things deliver the results that I thought they would? And often it does. And if it doesn't, then we start to analyze why not. I thought making 10 calls would make me feel accomplished. It doesn't. Why? What didn't work about it? Was I calling the wrong people? Was I not prepared for those calls? Was it because they didn't convert? And the truth was, it wasn't about calls. It was about conversions. But that gives us way better data to operate from to make new choices. It's just such a different place to show up, I think.
Totally. Oh, totally. I mean, when you're doing this for yourself, I feel like I would need, especially starting off with doing something like this, I would need like a piece of paper to write down the steps. Like, how do you do it? Do you do it internally, or do you have like a physical?
I do now.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not entirely true. Let me say, on a day-to-day, I do it internally. Right. So, because I am doing this on that micro level day to day. On the macro level, like I do annual planning. And in fact, my new year, I do zodiac New Year's based on my astrological chart. And my new year, I know. So my new year's mid-October. So like I'm in my primo, I don't know when this will run, but as we're recording this, I'm in my primo planning season. So this feels like my new year. I get that energized, excited feeling that people sometimes associate with the new year.
Yes.
So at my new year, mid-October, end of October is when I do my planning for the year ahead.
Okay.
And that is pen to paper. And that I actually have, I don't know if I can find one.
I mean, talk about the data point, right? I mean, like,
but I have a workbook
down?
I have a workbook that I use that I work with my clients. It's actually available on Amazon. I'll send you the link if you want to share it in your show notes for people.
No, girl, I'd love to share it. I'm going to make a note of that right now.
I think it's called the Feminist Founder's Guide to Building Your Dream Life, but it also goes through like planning stuff. And then I go through a planning, like at the year, I do a bigger sort of zoomed out life. What do I want my life to look like? All the stuff we've been talking about, 10-year, 5-year, 1 year. And then what are the things in support of that? And including like refreshing. I have a real spreadsheet I use. I go in and refresh with my dream life. What does that look like? What does it cost? Because guess what? Things change. What may have once felt important feels a whole lot less important. Well, that too. Or having a kid, or I start to realize like maybe I don't really care about getting a massage every week. I thought I needed it because it seemed like it, and I don't really, right? So I adjust and I do all of that. So I do pen to paper, and I do it pretty hardcore once a year. Once a quarter, I do a solo hotel retreat for 2 nights, which I cannot recommend enough.
Love.
Where I go by myself. It's my CEO time. It's also, there's a whole lot of pampering that goes on and rest and things like that too. But that's when I sit down and kind of revisit my quarterly plans. Again, using spreadsheet at that point more than pen and paper, and just kind of looking at what were the things I want to feel. Because every year I select a word of the year too, which is my overall, what do I want to feel? And then I'm like, so it's always there and I'm in service of that. Once a quarter, then I'm doing an updated version of that. And then that's kind of the bigger. And then on the daily, it's just remembering what is it I'm wanting to feel, which sometimes can change. Like this week, again, these last 2 weeks, it's been, I want to feel healthy. So what do I need to do in support of that? Right. And that has looked like rest. As sometimes as hard as it's been, I keep remembering today I want to feel healthy. Okay. Then what do I need to do? I need to do nothing. And that's a hard thing for me to do, but I'm going to do nothing because that's the goal. That's where I want to get.
I feel like it'd be so hard to like, I want to feel, I don't know, rested, for instance. What do I need to do to make that happen? I need to get my stuff done. And then you're like working more. Do you know what I mean?
It can be, but then I think you need to sometimes too, when we talk about how we want to feel, and this is interesting because humans often like, I saw something that said most people only can describe like 3 feelings. Like if you actually ask them to describe what does it feel like?
The emotional capacity of a teaspoon. So
well, it's like Inside Out, right?
So hard.
I always think of the movie Inside Out, which basically has like 5 emotions. There's like angry, envy, happy, sad, and I don't remember the 5th one, but there's like a fear. So there's like 5 in Inside Out. Inside Out 2 adds like 4 more. So like teenagers have like 9 and we're supposed to have like, but most people really don't have a lot. Yeah. So some of that is honestly getting a feelings wheel and because they're available online, look at them online and actually take that and open up your dictionary, either paper, nobody has those anymore, look online on an online dictionary.
Totally.
And start actually looking up the definitions of words, of feelings. Most of us can't really describe how we want to feel. We don't really know what it is. So we need to get more familiar with our feelings. We need a higher emotional intelligence. And it's no one's fault you don't have that because we aren't taught that. Now, this is a case where it's actually more true for men than for women. This is a rare place where men are more deficient than women because they aren't given that. But even as women, we're mostly taught that we're only allowed to be happy, right?
Yes,
men are allowed to be happy and angry. We're allowed to be like happy. But we need to, and then we don't even really know what happy means because it becomes almost an empty word when you use it to describe everything.
No, right.
Exactly.
And it's like,
and that's a learning difference between happy versus content, happy versus joy. People don't know those differences. So you're not wrong to say, I want to feel rested, so then I have to do all this work to do it. Look up what rested means.
Yes.
It's not going to say you're doing a bunch of work to get there, right? So that's not how you actually want to feel. If how you want to feel today is accomplished or productive, that's valid, right? That's valid. But if what you're actually wanting to feel is rested and actually rested, then that you have to look at what you're doing to get to say, is this actually in service of this?
Yes.
Or is that either not the right feeling or some messaging telling me that I'm supposed to do these things, even though that goes against what I said I wanted?
Right. And just the ability to like sit with the feeling and figure out like what the feeling even is, the definition of feeling, why I'm feeling this way. I mean, I feel like that would be a sweet little daily check-in in the beginning of the day. Like, is that when you do that usually?
Yeah.
Okay.
I drop my son off, and a lot of this happens in the car after I drop him off and I'm heading home and just thinking about, okay, because that is sort of the shift for me into my time, into my life. Like, I'm done with my morning parenting stuff.
Time now. Yeah.
And now I think about, okay, so now how do I want to feel? Like because I have a set time. This is generally around work. I can also think about it in my personal life too, but just specifically around work, I think, okay, in the next 7 hours, like at the end of these 7 hours, how do I want to feel?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what do I need to do to feel that?
Yes. I love that. I think just being able to like stick to what you want to feel, and like that is where the discipline really comes in. I've always really prided myself on my discipline because it's built me, so much success in life, but I end up kind of forgetting that like I need to be disciplined to me sometimes too, right? Not just the outputs.
Other word can be accountable because some people may not like discipline. They may not feel like they're disciplined, but it's about being accountable to ourselves.
Yeah.
And also For those of us who struggle with discipline or self-accountability, this is also what it looks like to have community. So many people, whether it's like I often use the term accountability coach, because for most of my clients, that's a lot of my work, is helping them, because they're the kinds of people, if you look at Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, they're obligers, which are people who will only do it if somebody else is expecting them to. So I become the person they feel obliged to work, get the things done, even though it's truly for them and I don't care, but just having that helps. So if you're somebody, you can get a coach who helps with that, or just having your people, finding your community, people you can check in with, somebody you can text with, somebody you can say, by the end of the day, I want to get this thing done. Co-working sessions. There are ways that we can help ourselves get that discipline / accountability / motivation. But often motivation for a lot of people becomes the bigger issue than the discipline. And when people say I'm lazy, I always want to remind them you're not lazy, you're unmotivated. And if you're unmotivated, why? And sometimes it's because that goal that you set wasn't the right goal, which is often because it's not a feelings first goal. But even if it is, it can be about evaluating that. And is that really what I wanted to feel today or what I thought I was supposed to? Because even when we try, those shoulds get in there.
Oh, I mean, so hard. Like, I'm kind of like beginning the journey on, that sort of thing of like, there's no, I mean, my husband asks me all the time. He's like, who put that in place? Who put that deadline in place for this?
Right.
And I'm like, it's me.
I'm the problem. It's me.
No, exactly. Yeah, I'm the problem.
It's the manufactured urgency, and we do it to ourselves because we learn urgency. Again, it's like how much and how fast. And so the urgency is something that we end up doing to ourselves. And when we get honest about what's the real deadline here, the truth is often nothing is that urgent.
Sure. Well, I mean, we think that so for instance, I think I set the deadline because my clients expect it, right? Because I'm like, I want to serve my client. But they don't care that tight, right? They don't.
Being sick has shown me a lot and again, part of that though is who are we manifesting? What is the energy we're putting out because of what we're attracting? And if we're still caught up in all of the traditional ways of showing up, often we're attracting people who are attracted to that. They want to work with people who are all about urgency. When we start to detach from that, we will sometimes lose people, and that can be challenging, but we begin to attract more people who are like, yeah, you need an extra day. Cool. You need an extra week. All right, no problem. They know because they're human first too.
Totally. No, totally. I mean, and I'm always human first to everyone I come into contact with.
Yeah, but not everyone's like that, right? Yeah.
No, right. But I lack the ability sometimes to do it for myself.
It's always easier to do it for other people. And that's one of the things that I work with clients sometimes too, when they're struggling, when they're like, I don't know how to do this for myself, whatever. If they are a parent, a mom, it's very easy because I can tap into that. What do you want your child to learn? Because they're learning from you.
Right.
Not what you say. They learn from what you do. And if they see you constantly busy, constantly worried about getting things done, constantly in the state of urgency, constantly striving for more and more and more, never being satisfied, never feeling good about yourself, what are they learning? And when moms especially can reframe these things of, I'm not doing this for myself, I'm doing it to teach my child something else, that is usually a huge help. If they don't have kids, it's often what would you tell your friend? And sometimes that also helps. But it's amazing how with moms, it's we can't do it for ourselves. But as soon as I realize oh shit, you're right, my kid's seeing this.
That's the light switch.
This is what they're going to become. I don't want that because I don't want to show up this way. And if I don't change, they are inevitably going to show up in the same way.
That's how it's going to happen.
It does help.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love that like we've talked about, the success isn't a one size fits all, that you can design it to feel good in your body. You can set the goals that more are feeling focused, and then that will motivate you even more and make it feel so much better. I appreciate you coming on and just chatting through all this stuff, because I think it's a really difficult wall to break through of this very traditional patriarchal definition of success, of what goals should look like, of what our outputs should even look like, and what that looks like. So thank you again.
Yeah, sorry we didn't get to boundaries. I talked too much, but maybe next time we'll come back and talk boundaries.
2.0. No, wait, 3.0, 4.0, whatever. Yeah,
because boundaries are important. It's also in how support we make sure that we deal with the external in going after our goals. But we can talk about that another time. And thanks for having me on.
We will talk it another time.
Even while sick, I'm talky. I'm a chatty person.
I love that about you. spirit animal over here.
All right, good.
So tell us one more time where we can find your podcast and where my people can work with you.
Well, if you go to BeckyMollenkamp.com, which I'm sure will be in the show notes, but also you can just type it in. And even if you get it wrong, Google finds me, because it's a great thing about having a name like mine. There's nobody else. And on there, you'll find everything. The ways to work with me as your coach. If you're interested in the podcast collective, if you have a podcast, it's an amazing and supportive community of other people who are trying to challenge a lot of these systems. And also where you can listen to Feminist Founders, Messy Liberation, and Assigned Reading, which are all of my podcasts.
Amazing. All right, my girl. Well, I can't wait to chat again. Hopefully you'll feel better. You're sweet little.
I'm almost there. I just want everybody to know I feel okay. I just sound awful.
You don't even sound that awful, but I can't wait to chat with you again. Yes,
Thanks.
thank you.